Welcome back. When you hear the word sustainability, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's probably trees, maybe recycling bins. But today, we're going to see that it's a much bigger and, frankly, a much more human story than you might think. Okay, let's dive in. So let's just get right to it with the big question. What does this word that we hear everywhere actually mean? I'm willing to bet it's a whole lot more complex and way more interesting than the simple definition we usually hear. And here's a hint right up front. Yeah, trees and pandas are definitely part of the picture. And they're important, but they are not the whole picture. Not even close. All right, so first up, we need to build a proper foundation here. We're going to move beyond the usual images and get to the real heart of what sustainability is all about. This right here is the classic, the most famous definition. It comes from a huge report all the way back in 1987. And the key phrase, the part you really got to focus on, is that powerful balancing act, meeting our needs today without totally wrecking things for everyone who comes after us. I love this analogy. It's a perfect way to think about it. We've basically been handed this incredible inheritance, the planet, right? And we have a duty to manage it wisely, to pass it on in good shape. It's like you can live off the interest, but you can't just drain the entire bank account. And this is where that definition really opens up. See, real sustainability isn't just one thing. It stands on these three interconnected pillars. You need to protect the planet, sure, but you also need a stable economy and a society that's fair and just for people. If one of these pillars starts to wobble, the whole thing becomes unsustainable. Okay, so now that we have a better definition, how are we actually doing? Let's find out. Think of this next part as our planet's annual checkup, a global health report card. Scientists have a name for the time we're living in right now, the Anthropocene. That anthro part, it means human. For the first time in the Earth's entire 4.5 billion year history, one single species, that's us, has become the main driver of change on the entire planet. More than volcanoes, more than ice ages, us. So if we're in the driver's seat, we desperately need a dashboard, right? A way to measure our impact. Well, that's what planetary boundaries are. It's a scientific framework that identifies the 9 most critical systems for life on Earth, and it sets safe limits for each one. It's our planet's vital signs monitor. And here they are, the 9 systems that keep our planet stable and livable. We're talking about things you've definitely heard of, like climate change and biodiversity, but also things like freshwater use and land system change. These are the big ones, the absolute essentials. So what did the checkup reveal? The results from our planet's health report are in, and the number is 6. We have already pushed past the safe operating space for 6 of those 9 critical systems. That's not just a warning sign, that is a bright red light flashing on the dashboard. So what's the plan? Well, this is it. In 2015, basically the whole world came together and created this, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. It's a massive, ambitious to-do list for humanity. It covers everything from ending poverty and hunger to pushing for clean energy and climate action. And the crucial part? They're all connected. You can't solve one without working on the others. But here's the thing, that global view is only half the story. To really get what sustainability is about, we need to zoom in. Because it turns out, how you define the environment depends entirely on where you stand. This analysis from the historian Ramachandra Guha is absolutely brilliant. He points out that in the West, environmentalism often started with a focus on protecting wilderness, these beautiful, untouched places with no people. But in a country like India, it was born from something totally different, a literal fight for survival and for social justice. Guha gives us this really powerful way to see the social side of all this. He says you can basically break society into 3 groups. First, you've got the omnivores, the wealthy, often urban folks who consume resources from all over the world. Then you have ecosystem people. These are the rural communities whose lives and livelihoods are directly tied to the health of the land right around them. And finally, you have ecological refugees, the people forced to leave their homes because of environmental damage, like a new mine or a giant dam. So let's see what this actually looks like on the ground. This next section is where these big ideas come to life through some incredible, powerful human stories that completely redefine what it means to be an environmentalist. This is the story of the Chipko movement. The word Chipko literally means to hug, and that's what they did.
When loggers came to cut down their forests in the 1970s, village women, especially, went out and physically embraced the trees to stop the saws. Now, this wasn't about preserving pretty scenery. For them, the forest was their source of food, fuel, and water. Their very survival was at stake.
Okay, now let's go to another story. This one centered on the massive Narmada River in central India. For countless communities, especially indigenous tribal groups, this river wasn't just a body of water. It was their entire world, their culture, their livelihood, their lifeline. So here's the conflict. This is the heart of the issue. What happens when a government's idea of progress or development, in this case, building a series of huge dams, directly threatens the survival of the people who have lived there for generations? Well, this is what happens. It sparked the Narmada Bachao Andolan, which means the Save the Narmada movement. It was this huge, decades-long protest. And who was leading the fight? You guessed it, those ecosystem people we just talked about, the very people whose villages and farms would be flooded, turning them into ecological refugees. And this was the devastatingly simple question they asked that changed everything. Who pays the price for this so-called development, and who gets to enjoy the benefits? This one question takes the whole debate away from being about concrete and electricity and puts it right where it belongs as a question of fairness and justice. So let's zoom back out one last time and tie all these threads together. After hearing those stories, after seeing the global data, what's the big takeaway? And here it is. This is the core idea from our entire explainer. The planetary boundaries are real. The science is clear. But the fight to stay within those boundaries is happening on the ground, and it's being fought by people. Sustainability isn't just an abstract scientific problem to be solved. It is a deeply human struggle over who has a right to a clean, healthy, and livable world. So I'll leave you with this to think about. As we talk about building our future, about new projects and new policies in our own cities and countries, we have to ask ourselves, who are the ecosystem people here? Whose lives and livelihoods will be most impacted? And, most importantly, are we actually listening to their voices? Because that is the real challenge of sustainability.